Howdy folks, this is Big Sam, and today I'm going to be showing you a neat trick that you may not have known about. I think most of you are probably familiar with this guy. It's a PU Russian scope, used from World War II to, well, almost every conflict you can think of since then. Vietnam, Syria, just everywhere. This scope's been everywhere. Very iconic, but it's quite old. This guy's about 80 years old. This guy was made at Yoshkar Ola in 1943. And if you can take a look here through the reticle, right, it's still in pretty good shape, very usable, but it's very basic, right? So it's just a simple German style post, right? And it seems like that's about all there is to this scope. It seems like this guy is just not that useful in 2021 anymore, right? It's more of a relic and icon of the past. Well, it's not actually quite true. There's a couple reasons why this scope is actually still relevant today. One, well, it's lasted, right? This thing lasted through the worst conflict in human history, and after 80 years it's still in fantastic shape. All the dials work, right? You can scratch this up, beat it up, it can get rust on the outside, and it still works. It'll still keep on churning along here. So in that respect, this is good. If you've got a basic or relatively basic scope like this one that works for 80 years, to me that's a lot better than having, you know, some really junky Chinese scope that may have some neat features, but it breaks after 2 months. To me, this is far more useful, and that's one of the reasons why these have been used so much throughout history. It's one of the reasons they're so beloved by everyone today. And another interesting reason, which is what we're talking about here today, is these have a secret way you can find or calculate distance. You can actually use these as a range finder. Now, you might ask, Big Sam, how is that possible? Because I look at this and all I see is that really simple 3-post reticle. How could you possibly calculate range from that? Well, I'm going to show you here. So it's kind of hard to see the reticle, I realize, through the scope, but here I've got a depiction of it. So you can think of this as our reticle in our PU scope. And there's some really interesting info here. So we're going to be looking at a couple of measurements of the actual reticle here itself. So first of all, we're going to be looking at this guy. So this distance right here, we're going to be using a unit called mils. So this, in this reticle, this distance is 7 mils, we're going to say, okay? And you'll see why this is important here in a little bit. So we're going to be looking at really 2 measurements today. It's this one, and then another one here is, we'll just do it like this, 2 mils. That distance is 2 mils. This is the actual reticle itself, right? And the same goes for the horizontal posts. So this guy right here, 2 mils. All right. So you're maybe lost at this point. You say, okay, Big Sam, this is totally meaningless. Give me some real useful information. Well, this is important because we're actually going to have a really simple formula here. So our formula is going to be, let me get that in focus. We're going to say W1 times 1,000. And I hope for those of you that don't like math, I don't want to lose you because this is actually really simple. So just bear with me here. We're going to have 2 important widths that we're going to calculate. W1 and W2. So W1 equals width of target in meters. I apologize, I'm a software engineer, so I have horrible handwriting. So this is sort of what we have here. W1 is going to be the width of our target in meters. W2 is going to be the width of target in the scope. Okay, the width of target in the scope. That's a C. Okay, so hopefully I haven't lost you. I'm going to explain this. This is actually really simple. So let's say we're an assassin in 1944 and we're hunting Adolf Hitler, okay? So if we're hunting Adolf Hitler, we're going to want to be pretty far away so that we're not just captured immediately and killed. That would be bad, right? And we also want to make sure we're close enough to where we can actually hit him. So if we want to assassinate Adolf Hitler, what we want to do first is know how wide Adolf Hitler is. So we're going to say the average, right? It depends, but the average, the width of a man we're going to use here is 0.5 meter. So for this example, right, this is a total joke, but we're just saying that we're a Soviet assassin in World War II hunting Adolf Hitler. We're going to say that we know he is 0.5 meters wide. Okay. So let's say that we found our target, right? And we're looking at our sights and we're looking at Hitler himself. What we're going to do is, let's say that you could imagine like we're looking through the scope here and we see Hitler and we have our crosshairs on Hitler. So let's say that his body is like right here. So let's say these are his shoulders, that's his head, right? So this is his head. This is sort of a poor depiction of a man, I apologize, but you can kind of guess. Like there's his, right? And there's his really ugly mustache. Okay, so let's say the width of Hitler is right here. So we're looking at Hitler and he fits right in this reticle. Okay, we're going to plug our values in because this is really simple. We know that in our scope, he is 7 mils wide because he is just the width of these guys here. So what we're going to do, we look at our formula. Width 1 is 0.5 because that's the width of our target in meters. So we have up here 0.5 times 1,000 divided by width 2, which is the width of target in scope, and that is 7 mil, right? So we have here 7 mil. What we're going to do is multiply 5 by 1,000, which is going to give us 500. All right, and then just divide that by 7. And that is about, we're going to say, equals about 70 meters. Okay, so well, it's cool. We've been able to determine how far away he is just by doing this, right? And one of the things is, if you're an assassin in World War II, you're gonna actually be pretty good at doing this in your head, because if you have these things memorized, like, all right, the width of a man is 0.5 meter. If you see this, right, if he fits in here, you know that he's about 70 meters away, close-ish enough, right? You know, he's pretty close. That's pretty close. You may want to be a little further away from Hitler if you're trying to get him in World War II. So let's use a different example. Let's say that we're looking at him in our scope, and let's say his whole body is just as wide as this vertical post here. So he'd be covered up, but to give you a size perspective, right, it would be like he's, you know, it would basically be like he's this now, right? He's about this wide. So how do we calculate how far away he is now? Well, if he's just that wide, he's now 2 mils. So what we do is say we know he's a half a meter wide, so it's 0.5 times 1,000 divided by, this time he's 2 mils wide. So this is 500 divided by 2, 250. So if Hitler is exactly this wide, you know, oh, he's 250 meters away. Right, so these are some basic examples, and as you see, the maths are really simple. So this could have been something that a Soviet assassin in World War II did. Now, in modern day, this may not be as applicable, right? Because I think most of us are not Soviet assassins hunting Hitler anymore. Although some people do say that he's still living in the Salta region in Argentina. I mean, probably not. I doubt there are too many people still hunting him. What people are more likely to be doing today with a PU scope would be, let's say, hunting deer or hunting an animal. Or even if you're just at a range, right? So maybe you're a shooting range, or maybe out in the country somewhere, and you just don't know how far away your target is. If you can figure out the width of your target, okay, because that can be sometimes be the hard thing to do. But if you know or kind of have an estimate of how wide your target is, that's all you need then to figure out how far away it is, right? Because the mils, you could figure out just sort of, okay, well, how much of the scope or the reticle does it fill up, right? As long as you know how wide your actual target is, you can easily calculate how far away it is. And that's one of the reasons I like these scopes, is it's so simple, right? So nothing here is going to break very easily, and it doesn't give me anything I don't need while still giving me some really useful info here. So I really like this. This is a cool scope. Now, for those of you that don't like math, there's another way to look at this. You kind of get to the same result. This is actually a printout I got from kalinkaoptics.com, and I'm going to be putting a link here in the description if you'd like to look at this yourself. But basically, we look here. What they say is, all right, you're looking at a human-sized target, Hitler in World War II, right? If Hitler's head is just as tall as this horizontal post, then he is 250 meters away. Okay, if half of his entire body fits within the horizontal post here, you know he's 500 meters away. If his whole body is this tall, so let's say, if that's his whole, well, I can try to draw a little stick figure. Okay. If he's that tall, if that's what he looks like in your scope, he'd be about 1,000 meters away. Okay. So there's a couple ways to calculate it, right? But it's not complex, and once you do it a few times, you get really used to it, right? And so you can imagine that Soviet snipers in World War II were trained to do this. The Soviets were not dumb, so they would have known about this. They would have known about how to use these measurements to calculate distance, and to do it quickly and to do it efficiently. So hopefully you guys learned something. Again, I'm going to be putting a link to the description where you can take a look at this, because it's got a little bit more info. It's actually really interesting, but I don't want to overload you with information because I can get confused, and a lot of times if I get confused about something, I just, you know, I'll put it to the side and say, I don't care about that. But it's actually really cool, and anyone can understand this really easily. So I hope you guys learned something. I really appreciate y'all watching. Let me know what y'all would like to see next, and let me know if y'all have any prayer requests. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.